everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Sip and Read. This is actually a virtual book club. I am the host. I am the creator of this book club. And my name is Martinique Brown. I'm so excited that you have decided to tune into the show today. So we've actually been reading a book called Choosing God's Best. Dr. Roniker is actually the author, and he's trying to move us away from dating to courting, the principles from the Bible that he believes, is really just teaching us a new way to go about in finding our mate. Hello, how you doing? Make sure that you go ahead and share this video. If this is your first time ever tuning into the show, let me know that you're here. Let me know that you have tuned in. Also, if you are a person that always tunes in the show, thank you so much. Also, let me know that you're here. The way that we make this show really a lot more interactive is just posting your questions, as well as your comments about the things that we discuss. If we're not friends already on Facebook, make sure that you send me a friend request so that you always be notified of all the new shows that I post. And if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. All of the links are in the description box. And if you really like the shows that I produce, make sure that you go ahead and visit my GoFundMe campaign. The link is in the description box. Any amount that you want to donate, I am very appreciative of. So it can be $5, it can be $100, anything that you feel is on your heart that will continue to keep these shows produced. So let's get started. So the name of this chapter is actually called Crumbleproofing Your Foundation. And so Dr. Roniker actually opens up in the verse from Psalms 127, verse 1. It says, unless the Lord builds the house, its builders labor in vain. So the third principle that he is actually sharing with us is anticipate marriage by completing practical preparations that will lay the foundation for a secure Christian home. I thought that was a solid. Hey, how you doing, Latoya? So Latoya is actually the creator and founder of Beauty and Brains. She creates mugs, and she also helps people to brand their business as well. If you want to learn more about her, Latoya, go ahead and post your contact information in the comment field. So, like I said, Principle 3 says anticipate marriage by completing practical preparations that will lay the foundation for a secure Christian home. So Dr. Roniker wants us to learn to have patience and wait on God's timing. I know that's a lot easier said than done, but that's what we're really trying to learn how to do in the process of courting. So on page 108, and also, if you want to order this book, you can go to the description box because it's a link. It's an Amazon link in the description box to order the book. So Dr. Roniker actually says, let's see what Dr. Roniker says. So he says, it's been said that there's no such thing as a coincidence, just God's plans unfolding in unexpected ways. If you've ever experienced the miracle of God's timing, you know how true this statement is. You can anticipate how or when God will unfold his plan for your marriage. But the Bible teaches that there is always a preparation time, a time to plant and sow before you reap a harvest. And that's coming from Galatians 6, verses 7 through 9. He also says that while you wait for God's timing, you must anticipate the unfolding of his will by completing practical preparations that will lay a solid foundation for your home. This foundation will take time to build because the building material is you. So in this building process, so in a house being built, you have your sheeting, you have the tools that's necessary to build the house. You have the workers. And so all of the materials that is needed in order to build this house, that we're the ones that's the material. So we're the ones that need to be built up. And so Dr. Roniker says these are the things that we need to begin to prepare in order to be ready for that next step of marriage. So the first one is, I'll just read it off. So it says your spiritual maturity, your godly character, your accountability, your emotional health, your financial stability, your vocational training, your parent training, your household training, and your commitment. So right now we're actually in, thank you so much, LaTanya girl. So this is her contact information, y'all. This is LaTanya's contact information. So we're actually in phase 3 right now. And so if you need to catch up on any of your if you need to catch up on any of these episodes, any of the chapters, make sure you go to my YouTube channel, because all of the episodes are on my YouTube channel. And of course, that link is in the description box. So this is, and I hope you guys can see this. So this is actually the foundation, phase 3. So it says, anticipate marriage and lay the foundation for a secure Christian home by completing practical preparations in the following areas. So everything that I just read, from the spiritual maturity to the household training and the commitment, this, like I said, this is the phase that we're in right now. And this is what we need to be developing and preparing. So Dr. Roniker says that God's job is finding you a mate and then revealing to you his choice in his time. Your job is to prepare yourself to be someone else's mate while you wait on God's revelation. And I thought that was really good, because we shouldn't be so focused on, we don't need to be focused on finding that person. That's why he's saying God is the one that is going to reveal to you who your mate is supposed to be. And so at the bottom, it also says on that second block, the dark gray, it says, before becoming emotionally intimate with someone, rid yourself of emotional baggage left over from childhood and past dating relationships. Recognize that unresolved sin will influence your emotional health. And so that's something that, of course, we have to be mindful of. Hey, Taekwon. And so that's something that we have to really be a lot more mindful of. And this entire chapter, Dr. Roniker is going into detail of those areas that we need to be building and preparing. And so, and he's really just trying to explain how to build a solid foundation in the list that, I just showed and read. So the first one that he explains is our spiritual maturity. He explains spiritual maturity to be the inner faith and deep beliefs you have, the deep belief that you have, your intimate relationship with God. And so Dr. Roniker actually says that the intimate relationship, your spiritual maturity, will affect your marriage in 3 ways. So then he breaks down the 3 ways that our spiritual maturity will actually affect our marriage. And I think that we don't even go into that, a marriage, thinking those things, but we have to become spiritually mature before we even think about marriage. And so the first one, he says, is how you hear God's voice. So like I said, the first one is how we hear God's voice. And Dr. Roniker actually says, he said, God's voice will come as a result of intimate love relationship you share with him. Like the mature sheep in a flock, The voice of the shepherd is more recognizable after you spent time together in the field. And I feel like that's so true. Like, how in the world do we know what somebody sounds like unless we spend time with them? And so that's why Dr. Roniker is really trying to help us and have a better understanding of that time that we spend with God. Then that's when we're able to hear when God reveals to us somebody is the person that we're supposed to be courting. Or, for females, if this guy that says, oh yeah, girl, I'm supposed to be courting you, is that true or not? Because we have to have discernment as well. And so the second thing that will actually affect our marriage is it will affect our intimacy with your spouse. So our relationship with God will actually affect our intimacy with our spouse. And Dr. Roniker was just saying that God won't allow you to be more intimate with the person than you are with him. He says a breakdown in your intimacy with God will short circuit intimacy with your spouse. Do you guys believe that? Do you believe that the stronger your intimacy and your relationship with God is, the stronger your relationship will be with your spouse? Let me know if you feel like that's true or not. So the third one is the success of your marriage is dependent on your spiritual maturity. The success of your marriage is dependent on your intimacy and your relationship with God. So do you agree or disagree with that? That you can't be fully intimate with another person until you are wholeheartedly intimate with God. So number 3, this is how Dr. Roniker is saying that our success in marriage is dependent on our relationship with God. He says Dr. Roniker is actually saying that choosing the right partner is not the most important part of a successful marriage. The success of your marriage comes from being obedient to God, and it will overflow in the relationship. So Latanya says she agrees, and Taekwon said that's facts. So, but what if you with somebody that is not a believer, and like you married that person and so you still trusting in God, but this person is still acting like, let's say he or she is just disrespectful in that marriage. And so do you feel that your obedience to God will hopefully eventually change that person? Or is it more so about how you begin to change and have patience with your spouse as they're going through that change? What do you think about that? And like, try to relate the whole relationship with us and God that we have with him. I'll give you my thoughts later on that. Yeah, I know not equally yoked, Latanya, but these individuals are already married, so what should they do? Let's say that one individual has decided to follow Jesus Christ, and the other person is still an unbeliever. If Dr. Roniker is saying, still be obedient to God, and that will determine the success of your marriage. And so what do you think about that, Latanya? So Regina said, depends on what you mean by disrespectful. So let's just say that he's all okay. I'm gonna say she, because I sometimes feel like I always like throw guys under the bus and I love men. But I'm just saying, let's say, for example, Regina, disrespectful means that that she is always rude to you in front of people, So tell me about that, what you think. And so let's see. I know it's hard, Latanya, isn't it? So Regina said, The Case for Christ is a good movie / Bible study for that question. Okay, so let me tell y'all, Regina is looking for individuals to join her Bible study. Regina, if you've already chosen what curriculum or what book you're going to study, if you can put that in the comment section and I can bring it up. So then Taekwon said that he said, that's tough. I will never find myself in that situation. Never say never, Taekwon. So the next section that Dr. Roniker actually talks about is your godly character. He actually discusses spiritual gifts and the fruit of the spirit. So I thought that this was really good. I try to always have pictures for y'all. Outer spaces. What's outer spaces? This is the Bible study that Regina is doing. What's outer spaces? Regina, I never heard that one. So, like I said, Dr. Roniker talks about our godly character in the next section. So our spiritual gifts and our fruits of the spirit. So Dr. Roniker talks about when we become whole in Jesus, and how a person, job, money, or being a part of a certain group won't make us whole. But a love relationship with God will produce the godly character that will make a person of integrity a whole person. Oh, okay. So did y'all catch that? So I'll say that again. So it talks about that our love relationship with Jesus Christ is what's going to make us whole, and not a job, not financial stability, not a person, not a group that we're associated with, won't make us whole. But, our wholeness comes from our love relationship with Jesus Christ. So that's what he was talking about. And he specifically, was talking about the fruits of the spirit. And in that fruit of the spirit, we have to really just learn how to develop these things in order to become that spouse that God wants us to be for that individual. And then just specifically speaking to single people, this is what the characteristics we need to be showing towards people on a daily basis. And it's really hard. And so, what God wants us to do is depend on him more to help us to begin doing, exhibiting these fruits of the spirit. And so also with our spiritual gifts, that is actually, and that's that second section, that's actually what's going to help us to glorify God, in our different talents, as well as helping to build the kingdom of God with the things that God has given us. So unfortunately, which is a great thing, Regina is out of the spaces. So she'll just have to let us know the next time that she does her Bible study again. So the next section that's discussed is laying a secure foundation of a Christian home is our accountability. Now that's something that we really don't talk about that much, but having accountability partners are so critical in our development and maturity as a Christian. And so Dr. Rottenberger explains that he actually says that you can, this is my own experience with accountability partners. When you have an accountability partner, make sure it's somebody of the same sex. Make sure that it's somebody that you can be open and honest with. If you're wondering what type of questions would you ask an accountability partner, you can actually Google accountability questions. And it has like a laundry list of questions. Not saying that you have to ask all of those questions, but what you want to do is you and that individual, or it can be you and 3 other people, you set aside time, maybe once a week or bi-weekly, and say, we're going to ask each other these questions. And it's nothing this is not something that you just gloss over. You run through the questions, but this is a time where you're open and honest with this individual. And you don't want to get an accountability partner that accepts the sin in your life, or congratulates you of the sin in your life. But you want to find somebody that is going to help you in that, they'll pray for you and that they'll minister to you as well. And it's not saying like you got to get a pastor or anything like that, but you do want to get somebody that is, like the title says, hold you accountable. And so Dr. Roniker says, lifestyle slippage problems, a fancy word of saying sin, begin when our own perceived needs take priority over our commitment to Jesus Christ. A key element to keeping ourselves from rationalizing unbiblical behavior is to develop accountability for ourselves. Because keeping ourselves accountable doesn't come naturally, we have to put accountability structures in place through a friend, a pastor, small group, married couple, or family member. Accountability is answerability and effort to have others hold us accountable for our actions. And so that's something that we really have to be mindful of when we are selecting our accountability partner. People that you don't want to be your accountability partner are people that always gossips and tell you about somebody else. Because as soon as they get mad at you about something, then you're going to be the next topic, that they're discussing. So that's something that you want to be mindful. And also just pray to God and ask him to reveal to you and help you choose who's the best accountability partner for you. So have you ever used an accountability partner before? That's the question on the floor right now. Have you ever used an accountability partner before? And what's been your experience with him or her? So the next section that Dr. Roniker talks about is our emotional health. In this section, Dr. Roniker first talks about the negative effects of not being emotionally healthy. So he actually says, during the preparation time for marriage, it's important to become fully aware of any issues from the past that might interfere with your marriage relationship. In a similar way, if you have unrepentant sin that hasn't been dealt with or reconciled, don't carry it with you into your marriage and assume it will go away. The memory of that sin will surface in ways you haven't considered. Past pain and bad memories not only can affect your marriage, but they can also haunt your courtship. They can hinder your ability to hear the voice of God and affect the way you interact with other people. They can interfere with your ability to develop a oneness relationship with other people, either spiritually, emotionally, or physically. So, hey, Lakeisha Smith, thank you for tuning in. So that's what Dr. Roniker is saying about the negative effect of having emotional baggage in our life when we're trying to go into courtship or, we're trying to marry somebody. And so then he talks about how to become emotionally healthy. So he says, because your emotional health is so important, it's imperative that you find a good Christian counselor before you consider courtship, and let God be the Lord of your past as well as your present and future. Let him heal your emotional wounds and free you from crippling experience of a painful past. And I thought that was really good. I thought that was really good that Dr. Roniker pointed out that you may need to go to you may need to go to a Christian counselor, because sometimes people think, oh, I'll just pray it away. But, remember, God has gifted people in certain areas and certain professions so that they can begin to help deliver people from different things. And so we really have to use these professionals to really just take our life to that next level, especially when it comes to emotional health, because that really does affect all of your relationships, regardless if you're in an intimate relationship or if it's just a family relationship or a friendship that you may have. So the next thing that Dr. Roniker discusses is financial stability. Dr. Roniker actually says that it's important to lay our financial foundation for our family in the following ways. So he says that, and you tell me if you agree with this or not. So he said a single man should have a vocation before he considers courtship. And if possible, he should be debt free when he marries. Now, I know that's going to be hard because I know I still have my student loan. So it says, in a similar way, the woman also should be debt free before marriage. Dr. Roniker, people ain't going to get married until they 50 or 60. Or never in some people's cases, if that's what it calls for, being debt free. So the next thing he says is the man in a marriage should assume the leadership role in financial responsibility and decision making. He says that it's coming from 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. He said, God created man to be the initiator and Eve to be his helpmate and companion. While the final responsibility for finances rests on the man, God may speak to the woman to minister to her husband through her. The virtuous wife is described in Proverbs 31. So another thing that he talks about in this section is, why'd you say, wow, shaking my head, Taekwon, why'd you say that? So so another thing he also says in this section of laying a financial foundation before we get married, before we start courting, he says, knowing about saving, this is what we should know about as single individuals. He says, we should know about saving plans, budgeting, life insurance, employment benefits, and retirement funds. And that should really just be part of so much of our single life as well as our married life. He said financial responsibility begins before marriage and not after. So that was really good. So let's see what Taekwon said. So Taekwon said, I hope people aren't marrying for prosperity. You know what? One of my friends, he really feels that people marry for convenience. It's not so much because of love or because they feel like God has brought them together. It's more so, I need a better house, so I'm going to marry this person because I know they'll provide me a better house, or a better living situation. And that's what people do. People marry for the wrong reasons. And I believe that that's one of the reasons why we have such a high divorce rate, because as soon as things don't go our way in that marriage, then we're out the door. Or, especially if you marry somebody for financial reasons and maybe they did have a great job before you married them, but let's just say they lost their job or they lost that status that they've had. And you're not gonna stick with that person because your foundation, you married them for the wrong reason, in the beginning. Unless you have this dramatic change and you like, what? I love this person. I'm gonna stay with them. We're gonna build together. So the next section that Dr. Roniker actually talks about is our vocational training. He says that he's really just trying to teach that there is a process to building our foundation. And the process that he is teaching is career, marriage, and then family. So he actually says on page 123, he actually says, during this time of preparing for your marriage, it's important to consider the trade-offs that must come if you have a two-income family or if you marry before your season of job preparation is finished. You cannot have it all. Some choices will include others. Some choices will exclude others. Now is the time to count the cost and seek the mind of Christ regarding the family he will someday give you. And see, in that section, Dr. Roniker talked a little bit more about for women. Sometimes we do have that pull in that we don't feel like we can have it all, because we do want to have this family and nurture our families. And then we also have that desire to be married. And so in that, it's constant, like a constant struggle. Do I be here majority of the time to nurture and help my family, or do I build my career? And so that's what he was more so talking about with your vocational training, realizing before you get married, before you start courting, which one are you going to decide? Because he's trying to say you can't have it all. You can't have both. I don't really believe that, though. I've seen some women that are very successful career-wise, but I'm not in their house. So yes, I can say, oh man, they look great on paper. They look great in these pictures, but maybe their house is crumbling. And for men, he was also saying that wasn't really a major struggle that men, have internally, just because they're already assumed to be that provider for the family. So that's what he was. He dug in a little bit deeper on, will the woman stay at the house, or will she have a career, And so I think that is something that you really do have to consider when you're thinking about who you're going to be with, and if you want a family and things like that, so it's very important. So the next section that Dr. Roniker talks about is our parent training. He says, for most people, marriage and children are complementary, but parenting doesn't include a trial period. And so then he starts talking about some of the ways that you can actually begin to develop your parenting skills. He says, by volunteering at your church's nursery, or to babysit your friends' kids, or to coach a little league team, or just be there for a child. And that will really help you to decide, if you want kids or not. So for the people that's watching, do you even want kids? Do you have kids? For the people that have your kids, if you're single, would you have waited if you could turn back time? Let me know what you think. So also the next section that Dr. Roniker talks about is household training. And I thought that this was a really good section, because this is something that we automatically assume for people, but it's nothing that is really discussed in a relationship. So let me read. So this is coming from page 125. He says, preparing for your role ahead of time will help smooth the way, not only for a well-managed home, but for less tension between partners. Perhaps you've heard the old saying that the fleas come with the dog. In other words, you shouldn't buy the dog if you don't want to deal with the fleas. Marriage is much the same. If you're not prepared to deal with the inconvenience of household chores and home maintenance, you're not ready for marriage. And that's something that I think that really has to be discussed, because You can have a male that automatically assumes, well, my mom did all the cleaning, so I know she's going to do all the cleaning. And she might have came from a household where the dad did all the cleaning. So you automatically coming into that situation with tension, because you haven't discussed who's going to do what chores. And I know that sometimes, maybe the situation changed when you're actually in the moment, but I think that that's something that has to be discussed. So I see a couple of people that's actually watching that's married. You let me know, how is that? Do you feel like you have to discuss chores beforehand, or do you just let the chips fall where they may once that first week rolls around after you've been married to see who's going to do what chore? I feel like it would have to be a roommate situation. I know with my roommates, we talked about who was going to do what, and when we were going to do those things. Not saying that we did it every single time, but at least we knew our role and our responsibility while we lived together. So, like I said, I've never been married before. So you let me know. Is this something that I'm going to have to discuss on my fifth date with my fifth courting experience with this person? So the next thing that Dr. Roniker discusses, and which is a biggie, he discusses our commitment. He says marriage is an unconditional commitment to an imperfect person. And I thought that statement was really good. So he actually talks about, now I'm going to ask you some questions, and if you say no to any of these questions, then it's kind of like you're out the running for being married at this time. You still have some preparing to do. So the first question is, will you love someone until the other person dies? Yes or no? Will you honor the person until one of them dies? Will you cherish the person until he or she dies? Will you not be involved with any other substitute mates? Will you perform all the duties of a spouse until the other person dies? Will you be loving and faithful through every kind of circumstance for as long as both of you guys shall live? And so with those questions, Dr. Roniker really wanted to point out what's involved in commitment, because you have to be able to say yes to those questions before you can consider committing yourself to somebody. And I think that that's the struggle that we have. And maybe even in the moment you do feel like that, but I feel like it's truly tested when things aren't going right, within a relationship, because when everything is perfect or everything seems like it's going well, then of course we can say that. We can say, oh yeah, I love that person through thick and thin. But let's see what you say when you're in the thin, when you in those hard times, when one of the spouses just got laid off, and so we really have to consider those things when really just building our own foundation, if we're ready for courting or not. So Dr. Roniker actually expresses how couples will do things. And so he says that this is actually what couples will say to him. He says, we've asked God about our relationship, but God hasn't told us to get married. I thought that was really good, because I know I've done that so many times in my relationships, at constantly asking God, when I'm in a committed relationship with this person, I'm constantly asking God, is this the person you want me to marry? And so Dr. Roniker is saying that is all wrong. So he says, If that's what you think and how you feel, then why are you in a relationship that God has not directed and ordained? And see, that's what Dr. Roniker is really trying to change our mindset in going in, being committed to someone, and we have not already got that discernment from God that this is the one you need to be courting. This is the one that you're going to marry. And so Dr. Roniker no longer wants us to bind ourselves to have that counterfeit oneness that he was talking about in past chapters with individuals, and we haven't been led by God to be in a courting relationship with that person. So Dr. Roniker actually closes this chapter by hitting home the point of building a concrete foundation. So he actually says, and this is kind of a long one, so just stay with me, okay? So this section is entitled Building a Crumbleproof Concrete. He says, being together feels so good and satisfying that couples don't always feel a need to work on building a foundation for a lasting relationship. But the time will come when just being together won't be enough. Togetherness will lose its magic when routine and restlessness replace romance. How you handle such changes in your relationship will be largely determined by the foundation you build and bring into your marriage as a dowry. Routine and restlessness can be the wind and rain that will beat on the walls of your home. Or it might be finances, health problems, troubled teens, or a long list of other problems that can wreak havoc on marriages. Regardless of what brings the storm, your foundation will be the concrete slab that supports you through the storm. You can't wait until the day you move into the house to pour the slab. Instead, you must lay the foundation long before the house is built. Part of laying the foundation is delaying everything else. You don't build walls before you pour concrete. In a similar way, you shouldn't begin a courtship until you have completed the preparation process that lays the foundation for marriage. And I thought that was a really good section to end on, just because it really just goes more in depth of the process of building a home. You know, like he was saying, before you can put walls on, you have to have, that slab. And that slab is your foundation. And so you have to have a solid foundation before you can begin building anything else. And that's why he's really just trying to help us to understand that we are the foundation. Before you connect yourself with anybody else, we have to get ourselves together first. And then we can become that spouse for that other person. And for individuals that do believe that God has called you for singleness to the rest of your life, we are still building our foundation. We are still building our foundation so that we can continue to be or get in the process of being who God has created us to be. And so one of the things that I think I'm going to start ending this book club with is what I think one of the quotes Dr. Roniker said in one of the previous chapters. And it was just, to me, this was just really hit home for me to help me have that freedom in that I don't have to be focused on finding that guy, but God is my matchmaker, and that I need to be focused on becoming who God wants me to be, in that I can just do my purpose that he has created me for. So he says, if and when God decides you can best serve him as a team member with a life partner, you won't need to change Sunday school classes or go out more. He will work out the circumstances. God will arrange the circumstances for us to meet our life partner. And so that, like I said, that really just hit home for me, and that really just resonated with me. So I hope that you're able to tune in next week. Let me see. Yeah, next week, Tuesday. So next week, Tuesday, we'll be talking about chapter 7. And it's called Relating Without Dating. I think that is going to be such a good one, because I know a couple of my friends have asked, how in the world do you get to know somebody if you don't date them? And that's the same question that I have. You know, it's kind of like I wanted to read that chapter first, to get me in the mood of even reading the other chapter. But that was my problem. That's why I decided to pick this book for my book club, because so many times I have these books on my bookshelf, but I just don't finish them. And so I wanted to really just challenge myself to finish reading these books. I hope you guys have a great night. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Martinique the Storyteller. Remember, you can actually catch up on all of the chapters on my YouTube channel. Make sure you send me a friend request on Facebook, Martinique Y Brown. All of the information is in the description box. And if you really enjoy the different shows that I produce, make sure you go ahead and visit and just give a financial gift to my GoFundMe campaign. And it's also listed in the description box. I hope you have a great night. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.